Oh, okay. So you just use
Present receive.
do you know present or
I think
this one, yeah?
this cup. Yeah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I'll talk about AI and its application in applying and understanding Islamic inheritance law. So the objective is to evaluate AI-generated answers relating to Islamic inheritance law. Now, why I chose Islamic inheritance law? Because it's described as 9/10 of knowledge. It's very important. All of us who are alive will die, and then if we have any property, that would be distributed amongst our legal heirs. And an important feature of Islamic inheritance law, in contrast with other areas of Islamic inheritance law, other areas of Islamic law, is that rules are very predictable. So we know who will get what share. So if somebody dies, have children, boys and girls, so it would be distributed with a ratio of 2:1. If there is wife, there are children, she will receive 1/8. If there are no children, she will receive 1/4, so on and so forth. So the rules are mathematically precise. They could be predicted. And because of this feature of Islamic inheritance law, we already have Islamic inheritance calculators. So you go online, you just put who are the legal heirs of somebody, maybe 2 sons, 1 daughter, mother, maybe father, wife, or husband, whoever. You just put, and you just put whatever is the property, if it's tangible, intangible, maybe land or cash or whatever, and you just receive who will receive what. So therefore, from calculator to large language models, it was not a big leap. But the distinction with calculator and large language model is that you can have a conversation with an LLM. You can ask them, explain, what are the rules behind it? How, if you want to change the situation, say for instance, there are distinctions in different legal jurisdictions. For instance, in Pakistan, orphan grandchildren are given inheritance. In Egypt, for the same issue, a different rule is adopted. So although the basic principles are the same, but then there are some jurisdictional differences. Also, there are differences between Shia and Sunni fiqh. So if somebody follows Sunni fiqh or Shia fiqh, and then there are differences. What LLM can do is that can explain those differences for us. So what I did, I developed a scale, a benchmark, how to assess AI-generated information. For Islamic law, accuracy, truthfulness, and authenticity of information is really important. So what's being said? And based on what? What's the authority? So accuracy, authenticity, they are really important. But for the sake of assessing AI-generated information, I also included to what extent the information is comprehensive. Explainability, how the content is presented, the structure. So based on these benchmarks, I then assessed different content based on questions. So I generated questions which are on a scale from simple to complex model. Simple model simply tell me what are the differences between Sunni and Shia fiqh. Pose these questions to ChatGPT, Copilot, DeepSeek, and then evaluated the answers in comparison with classical fiqh textbooks or any book on Islamic inheritance law, and then assess to what extent the information is correct. And I specifically asked generative AI models to give me the references. And then I checked to what extent references were correct, and to what extent information was also accurate. So accuracy, authenticity, comprehensiveness, explainability was checked. Let me just give you simplest model. Somebody passed away, left behind husband and son. So husband will receive 1/4. If there were no children, husband should have received 1/2, and the son would receive 3/4. ChatGPT provided not only the answer, but also provided specific reference to the relevant Quranic verse, that is Surah Nisa, verse number 12. Slightly complex issue, where in Islamic inheritance law, those who are familiar, there is an issue which is called all. So sometimes the shared shares and the calculated shares, there is difference. And then there is a way how you resolve it. And this is a classical example where somebody dies, leaves behind widow, daughter, and uncle. So here, not only you have to adjust the shares, there are also differences in Sunni and Shia fiqh. So here, under Shia fiqh, uncles will receive nothing. Daughters will receive substantial amount. Under Sunni fiqh, uncles will also receive along with daughter and the widow. Here, ChatGPT and DeepSeek, they were able to provide correct answers, but then they missed slight differences when it comes to the differences between Shia and Sunni fiqh. One specific difference is that under Shia fiqh, a childless widow or a widow does not receive any share in land. She receives share in all the immovable property, but not in the movable property. So that specific aspect was not covered either by ChatGPT or DeepSeek. Gemini and Copilot, they didn't provide the correct answer to this. So, and when we looked into the moderately difficult question, in Islamic inheritance law, this issue is called Himaria, where somebody passes away, leaves behind full brothers and uterine brothers. So in this particular context, full brothers are excluded. And then Muslim scholars have come up with different solution to this issue. So it requires a bit more adjustment. It's not simply 2 + 2 and then you'll receive it. So here, all the models struggled. So none of the 4 models could provide correct answer to this question. Very complex, so where there are differences. I specifically focused on Iranian law to assess Shia fiqh, and then on Hanafi fiqh, I compared Pakistan and Egypt. None of the AI model could actually provide correct answer. So on a scale, very simple answer, very good accuracy rate, but as you just make things complex, the accuracy of the answers decreases. So when I just looked into compared different models, ChatGPT performed the highest. The accuracy was to the extent of 80%, which is pretty decent. I mean, if I have to grade them, I'll just give ChatGPT for A. And interestingly, DeepSeek, which came later, is very similar. So its accuracy rate is 0.5% lower than ChatGPT, but DeepSeek's free version is as good as ChatGPT's paid version, by the way, those of you who just want to do your research. But then Gemini and Copilot, they are not very good, so their accuracy rate is less than 50%. So here I just want to show the same data on this graph. So here you can see that on accuracy, all the models, their ratio is relatively low, right? And for Islamic law, accuracy is perhaps most important. Structure does not really matter. It does not really matter how confidently you say it. If the information is not correct, if not accurate, there is a big problem. So how we can deal with this issue of accuracy? Well, modern jargon, we just use the term RAG, or those of you who just use these models, Notebook LM provides one solution. So what you do is that you have on Google Notebook LM, upload a book or an article. It will then generate answers from that source which you fed into it. And it will also give you specific reference to a particular page number. So I just thought maybe that would be a solution to the problem. It is to a certain extent, but not 100%. I uploaded a famous book on Islamic inheritance law on Notebook LM, posed the same questions. It could not provide accurate information, although the information was there in the book, right? So technology is important, but it has its limitations. What are the basic problems? First and foremost, hallucination. ChatGPT would refer books with the names of the authors which don't exist. So authors might have written. One example is that Hamid Hassan has written a book on Islamic jurisprudence. Hamid Khan has written a book on Islamic inheritance law. So ChatGPT would just give a reference to a book which is written by Hamid Hassan, who actually hasn't written. Actual book is written by Hamid Khan. So it could not just differentiate. So there is issue. It just fabricates references. It would just look very accurate, but it is not. And sometimes it also misrepresents rules of different schools. And the issue is also with opaque sources. It just makes up sources, makes up the titles of the books, which is really problematic. Now, based on my experiment, and this is very a small segment, I then have designed a scale when to use generative AI for Islamic inheritance law or when not. At one level, we can just make full use of generative AI as a research assistant, but then we need to verify all the resources. I would tell my students, never ever rely on a source generated by generative AI. If you find a source, double check it, either from Google Scholar or from book. Second level is where you can partially use in order to understand different issues. That's the second level. The third level is where you can make minimal use. So here, ChatGPT would not help us distinguish opinions between different schools. Sometimes jurists have to make preferences. So we have 4 Sunni schools, and then within one school, we have differences of opinion amongst different scholars. ChatGPT will not help us to choose which one is the preferred view. And the fourth level is where there would be no use of generative AI. And that is where you have to make a choice. So here, human intervention would be required. And the final is where ChatGPT or any generative AI model would be banned. So where it would be unethical or it would be illegal to use. Well, just ask ChatGPT to fabricate hadiths, right? Or ask generative models to circumvent Islamic inheritance law. So that's where the use would not be allowed. So this is the scale that could be used for the guidance of using different generative AI models. So what we conclude, there is potential use of generative AI, speed, efficiency, all of us, we know. But ChatGPT or any other model is not going to replace jurists. So we'll always need human supervision when it comes to the application of Islamic law, and in this case, specifically Islamic inheritance law, even when we have very intelligent machines. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.